Robinson, who's in the slot. Look in that direction on a slant. Huge hit. Ball picked off. The Volunteers of the Carib make an interception. Jawan Mitchell. They call him Juju.
The discrepancy. Schuster, they were going to take a shot, but he's hit by Nelson. And Nebraska has picked up the football. Their first takeaway of the game.
Wells way down the field. It is into coverage. It is intercepted. It is over. Lamarian James has sealed the victory for Old Dominion. And fittingly, it comes on a takeaway.
Hollywood Titan. I'm joined by my co-host at Justice_2318. What's going on, man?
Oh, not much, buddy. I'm just enjoying this Monday morning.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, it's cloudy and rainy here, so we're expecting a cool down. So
we get that tomorrow, I think.
Yeah, well, I think the cooler part comes tomorrow, but it's already cloudy and kind of rainy. So
yeah, we get the rain and the cooler part tomorrow.
Yeah. So we're back. I want to thank everybody for tuning in, watching, listening. Week 9, season's for fantasy purposes is almost over. You're probably got we've got one more week. And then
most of our leagues, this is it. Like week 10 is it, and then it's playoffs. Yeah.
Yeah. And for those of you who are good enough to advance to the playoffs, congratulations. If you're like me and your team sucks, then we need to be better next year. So, but there is no off season. So start making trades, start getting that fab money, auction money, draft picks, whatever it is, however your league's set up. Now's the time to stockpile and get ready for the off season. So it never ends. I think that's one of the things I like about fantasy football is it never really stops. I mean, you're especially in campus to Canton, right? Because you're watching the recruiting, you're watching high school, college, the NFL. So good times. Forgot what I was saying here. News and notes. Eastern Michigan will rename its field after Las Vegas Raiders defensive end Max Crosby and his wife Rachel Crosby donated $1 million to the school. So Crosby was a huge hit up there for Eastern Michigan. Is a star pass rusher now in the NFL, of course, and it's good to see them give back to where they went to school, right? So
yeah, that's pretty
kudos to them for that. Yeah, I thought that was really cool. Kind of the never forget where you come from thing, right?
Yeah.
I think a lot of times people in general, not just sports, people in general, hit the big time, for lack of a better term, or get really well out there for themselves, and they kind of forget where they come from sometimes. So I thought that was cool to see. Man, you were just talking about this. And this just broke like an hour, 2 hours ago. The University of Iowa Athletic Department has announced the resignment of offensive coordinator Brian Ferentz, effective immediately. Wide receiver coach Welton Copeland is the new interim OC. I think we've talked about this the last few weeks. This was inevitable, right? Either he was going to get canned or he had to resign.
Yeah.
He had the clause that he had to average 24 points a game on offense, and
not even
the writing was on the wall. Yeah, it just wasn't going to happen. And honestly, this is probably the best move for everyone involved, right? The school, the coach, his dad, the head coach. He didn't have to fire his son, so he stepped away his offenses have not been good the past few years, but it kind of lets him save some face, right? That he recognized that he wasn't getting the job done and he stepped away. So kudos to him because that's a hard thing to do because most people would stay there until they're fired. And it takes a big person to admit that, hey, I'm not getting the job done. Somebody else should take over. So
I heard rumors that Kirk was going to be gone possibly at the end of the year too. So
yeah, we just talked about that too. He's been there for 24 years. I think it was we added up.
Yeah.
Started in '99, and that's coming after Hayden Fry was the coach for, I believe it was 19 years. So kind of like the Steelers, right? You've had 3 coaches or 2 coaches, whatever. The Steelers have had 3 in seems like 70 years if you want to do the Chuck Noll and I forget the one in the middle.
Gosh, I can see his face.
Yeah, he's got the jaw. What's his name?
Oh man, Bill Cowher.
Bill Cowher, yes, because thank you. That would have drove me insane. So Chuck Noll, Bill Cowher, and Mike Tomlin, and then here in Iowa you've got Hayden Fry and Kirk Ferentz. So again, kudos to Brian. I think that was the best move for everyone involved. Here's a weird one, and I need to go back and look at. I've seen some pictures, and I need to do some further digging into this. But the NFL sent a cease and desist order to the University of Houston and ordering them to stop wearing the Houston Oilers inspired unis that they wore this past weekend. Now, I've seen some pictures and they are almost spot on color wise, scheme wise. I don't know what the actual,
but like you can't trademark colors. So like they're not using the logo, so I'm not sure, and the logo doesn't look the same. So
yeah, I saw the logo, and you're right, it's not the same. So I don't know if there's if the NFL has some kind of patent on the design, like how the colors are laid out. Because, like you said, you can't patent colors, but maybe the design. I don't know. I need to dig into that further.
I don't know. It seems like a baseless argument to me personally.
Yeah. Just another example of the NFL trying to monopolize the entire game of football, right? It's not bad enough that they have to shut down the USFL and CFF and, the summer leagues and all this. Let's go pick on the NCAA for a while. So.
Yeah.
Colorado State fans drew a 15-yard unsportsmanlike penalty for throwing snowballs on the field this past weekend against Air Force. It's crazy. I mean, I know it's snow and whatever, kind of exciting. I'm all for it, playing games in the snow. But
yeah, they got a warning for doing it, and then they kept doing it.
Yeah,
I watched
fans
that game.
are going to have.
The security kind of pushed them all up. They made them go halfway up in the stands. Wouldn't let anybody sit down low anymore.
Oh wow. Yeah. Well, the thing is, fans are gonna have to dial this back. Golf balls and mustard bottles and snowballs and whatever else, beer cans. It's going to get to the point to where it's going to be like Major League Baseball. You're going to see a net, I think, all the way around the inside of the stadium if they continue to throw this stuff out on the field. And I don't want to see that. I think college football, the atmosphere of it is the best of any sport anywhere in the world, right? You can't match that environment and that atmosphere, but I think fans are just going to have to tone it down a little bit, I think. But
yeah.
Not to get too deep into this, we all know about the scandal, the sign stealing scandal that Michigan is currently in. But I did find this today that Michigan has pulled their offer to Jim Harbaugh, the head coach, that would have made him the highest paid coach in the Big Ten. So we've kind of talked about things like this before. Where there's smoke, there's fire. And the fact that they're pulling their offer leads me to believe that they think there's more to this than what we're being told, or they're not okay with what's coming up. They're trying to cover their bases. So,
Yeah.
Here's another piece of news that I found just before I jumped on. Actually, breaking news. I need to get a breaking news sound for us. But five-star edge Elijah Rushing has committed to Oregon. Now, if you remember, we've talked about him before. He was originally committed to Arizona, and then recently, within the past month or so, withdrew his commitment. It was wondering where he may land. Oregon, Tennessee, some other schools, big name schools were in on it. So I was kind of surprised that he went to Arizona to start with. Still haven't seen why he decided to leave there or withdraw his commitment. But he's headed to Oregon. Huge get for them. They jumped, if you look at On3 rankings, team rankings for that class, 2024, they jumped from 10 to 6. So this was a real big get for them. Be interesting to see how he fits in up there. I can't tell if I'm on a delay, Justice. That's why I'm pausing to let you talk.
No, you're good. You're good.
Okay. After 8 weeks of college football, only one remains. The only winless team is Sam Houston State, and God love them. They ain't nobody pulling harder for them than me and you, brother. I'm telling you.
Man, they blew it again. They blew it again.
Heartbreaker. I was just they blew a lead. They had the lead to UTEP this past
they were up
week.
24-10.
Yeah, they were rolling, and I don't know what happened, but a light switch got flipped somewhere, and they just couldn't hang on. And they're such a good team. They really are. I hate it for them.
Yeah, it was rough for sure. Like, I mean, I really thought they were going to win this week, and I don't know, this coming week they should win though, right? I mean, they're playing FCS Kennesaw State, who is moving up next year, but
yeah, that's what I was fixing to say. They're not really a slouch team. I mean, they're kind of following the path of Sam Houston State and some others, right? Jacksonville State and some of those guys. So they're not having a good season this year as they're 2-5, but historically for FCS, they've been one of the better teams, maybe not top 25, but probably top 50 teams. They've had some good teams. So, but yeah, I think this is Sam Houston's best chance here to get a win, I think.
Yeah.
If nothing else, I want to see our boy Trevor Williams and get the win. He deserves it for how hard as he's played. So.
Oh yeah, he's been lights out for him.
Yeah, and I've reached back out to him. I know it's a busy time of year with school and football season dominating everything. So, but I have reached back out to him to see if we can get another interview with him and his teammate Markel Perry, who we interviewed. So, hopefully they'll reach back out to us and we can get something set up. While I was looking for some news and notes, a great article by the Bleacher Report, and it's titled "How Army and Navy Got Pushed Out of College Football." And if you'll click on our show sheet when we post the episode, there's a link there that you can click, and it's basically telling how Army and Navy back in the day was the dominant teams, right? National champion contenders, Heisman Trophy winners. And it kind of just leads into how they kind of just got pushed out of the way and forgotten, kind of out of sight, out of mind in a corner. Air Force is also there too, but it's just a really neat article I thought was cool. So go check that out. Excuse me. And then you've got the Reese's Senior Bowl Defensive Player of the Week is Western Michigan defensive lineman Marshawn Nealon, who racked up 11 tackles 8 solos, 4 TFLs, 3 sacks, 2 quarterback hits, and a forced fumble in the 45-21 win over Eastern Michigan. So a huge day for him. Big congrats to him. And speaking of players of the week, that leads us to ours. So for me, I had Jared Ivey, defensive lineman for Ole Miss, 5 tackles, 3 solos, 2.5 TFLs, 2.5 sacks, and a 33-7 rout over Vanderbilt. And your player of the week was Marlo Wax, linebacker from Syracuse. 14 tackles, 8 solos, 2 sacks, 2 TFLs in their 38-10 loss against Virginia Tech.
He was like the only bright spot for Syracuse.
Yeah, I tried to flip it over there a time or two. I was watching some other stuff, other games or whatever, and it just did not look good for Syracuse, which kind of shocked me. I thought they would be better than that against Virginia Tech, but that was not the case.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I agree. I mean, Virginia Tech's really come on since the beginning of the year, so but Syracuse certainly maybe Dino Babers is going to be done after the season. Who knows?
Yeah. And while I was looking for some news and notes, it kind of I found a couple of things that kind of played in with our players of the week here. And again, you can find the links to these on our show sheet when we post the link to the podcast. PFF released their college football awards, team of the week, player and player of the awards. So for week 9, they've got the guy that you picked, Marshawn Nealon, Western Michigan, edge Kendron Perkins, Purdue, interior defensive lineman Tavondre Sweat from Texas, his teammate, interior defensive lineman Byron Murphy II from Texas. I expect both of those to be early draft picks, probably somewhere in the second round. Then a guy that I've got and talked about a lot, linebacker Adrian Cooper, Texas A&M, linebacker Langston Patterson for Vanderbilt, cornerback Travis Hunter of Colorado, corner Antoine Jackson of East Carolina, safety Jalen Reed for Penn State, safety Trey Taylor for Air Force, and then they've got a flex here, cornerback Thomas Harper of Notre Dame, and they picked their defensive player of the week was Travis Hunter. So they've got him recorded for being on the field 36 snaps in coverage. He was targeted twice and only allowed 1 reception for 12 yards. And he had 2 interceptions, which got him a grade of 91.9 for the game. So, man, I feel like we talked about him one way or another, injuries and talent and whatever, right? Transfer, whatever.
Yeah. Did you see?
He not one of them?
Go ahead.
I was going to say, is he not one of the more polarizing players in college football right now? I mean, he's a corner. We've seen what he can do on offense because Dion and them's trying to, I don't want to say push, but they're really supporting him to be a two-way player, right? They're trying to get his value up. But he's a legit receiver, too. He does a lot for them as a wide receiver. So while I think he's better suited as a corner,
yeah, for the NFL,
they're going to be interested in him as a receiver, too, I think.
Yeah, I mean, he didn't put up his gaudy wide receiver stats this week, so but right. Yeah, it'll be interesting to kind of see if they continue that usage going, for the rest of the season, and then I guess next year, because he has to come back next year. He still has another year before he can go to the NFL, right? Because last year he's a true freshman.
Yeah, so that's music to our ears as fantasy managers.
So yeah, the thing I was going to mention was, I don't know if you saw the comments that Dion made about the offensive line at Colorado.
Oh, yes, I saw that. That's
interesting, right? I mean, like he basically said, "You suck. I'm gonna replace you." Well, number one, like I feel like everybody wants offensive linemen in the portal, right? So I don't think it's as easy as as maybe he thinks it is. But I don't know. It's just kind of rough. Like I don't know. Like I get they aren't playing well, but I don't know that.
And we knew this, right?
Tearing them down is going to help them play any better.
Right, and we knew this. We talked, me and you and Chop, right? We talked about this way back in the summer in the spring game. We were talking about defensively how small their defensive line was, and they, for the most part, held up considering. I think their offensive line had some issues too, right? And we kind of knew that. As a player, this can't really set well with you.
It's got to be rough, right? The man just told you suck. I'm going to replace you. So why, if I'm a player, why would I want to be like, well, screw you, then, right? I mean, like.
But at the same time, he's kind of not wrong. I mean, he could have probably handled this better, internally or whatever. But
there's a better way to do it, I think.
Yeah, he's not wrong. That offensive line has had some major issues. Shadur's having to run for his life at times in some of the games I've watched, even though they held up.
I don't disagree the offensive line is bad, but I also think like Shadur's not very great at anticipating and avoiding pressure either.
True. I think there's no one single unit, team, or player to blame. I just think they're kind of. So let's remember, he brought a lot of players from Jacksonville State.
Yeah, it's just a bad. I don't know. To me, it's just bad all around, right? Because,
right,
I don't know. You're blaming other people, and your son's the quarterback. Like you're not giving him any blame.
Right, and I think that's going to be one of Deion's downfalls, right? Because, like I said, he's not wrong. He's not wrong. That offensive line has played like shit. I'm going to get somebody to replace you. Now, you don't come out and say it that way. Maybe you address your team first and say, hey, y'all are not getting this done. This is not cut. And if we don't improve here, I'm going to have to look to make some changes. I think that would have been the more correct way to say it.
Well, there's things you can do as a coach, right? Like you can, more short passes, get the ball out of the quarterback's hands quicker. There are things you can do to help mitigate that, right? I mean, like the only team that has a worse offensive line than Colorado, based on statistics, is Old Dominion, and I've watched them from week one, and they played JMU, who was the number one defensive line. Right. I tell you, they were adjustments. Not to say they didn't get sacks, but they didn't. JMU didn't get the sacks that was their season average for a game.
Correct.
So, the play calling, and it was drilled into the quarterback's head. You got to get rid of the ball. And so again, like there are things that can be done to help mitigate a bad offensive line.
Yeah, I agree. But I kind of got to be honest. I kind of like the way Deion's doing this, right? I mean, he could have handled it a little more different with his team and stuff, but the transparency,
he's certainly
he's not sugarcoating like some.
Yeah, it's true.
I mean, he's not handling like some coaches where they kind of try to sugarcoat it or sweep things under. He's telling
you know where you stand, right? You know where you stand.
Exactly. And I think for players, if I'm a player, if I'm an offensive lineman under him, yeah, that kind of pisses me off. But at the same time, I'm not wrong. I know how he is, and he's telling the truth. Your offensive line sucks. So I just thought that was kind of neat. But yeah, I didn't put that on the show sheet, but I was going to mention that. That's that was something we're not used to seeing for sure. Also, Sporting News released their mid-season All-American defensive team, and this was not this week, but a couple weeks ago. I just happened to stumble across it. So go check them out. I didn't put the offense or special teams on there, but their mid-season All-American team for defense is as follows. So they've got him listed as a defensive line, but he's a DN. Jonah Ellis for Utah. Defensive lineman Howard Cross III for Notre Dame.
Cross is a tackle, I'm pretty sure, isn't he?
Yeah, he's an interior guy. Latu is more of an outside linebacker edge, and that's Latu, the edge for UCLA. And then they have one edge, Dallas Turner from Alabama. At linebacker, they've got a kid I've never heard of here, Jason Henderson from some team called Old Dominion. I've never heard of the kid, don't know. And then they've got Adrian Cooper, linebacker for Texas A&M, Jay Higgins, linebacker from Iowa. That's a pretty formidable three. And then they've got in the secondary Kool-Aid McKinstry, corner for Alabama, Denzel Burke, corner from Ohio State, and Jalen Simpson, safety for Auburn, and Malachi Starks, the safety from Georgia. So a pretty neat little list there. I feel like there's a lot of players on that list we've talked about. I don't know that we've mentioned Denzel Burke, the corner from Ohio State, and I don't know that we've mentioned Ellis or Cross too much. But they're kind of more known. But Denzel Burke, I know for a fact we've not mentioned.
Yeah.
So that's some things there to take note of. We got to take a minute and thank our sponsors at Trophy Smack. They supply us with all of our hardware for our championship winners. Rings, which they give to us, belts, trophies, plaques, stuff for losers. And they're not just fantasy sports, right? Maybe your company, you want to motivate your sales team. They can put something together for your sales team for the top seller, whatever. So go check them out. High quality stuff, well made, looks great. Just can't say enough about them. Check out our link in our bio. You can click the link and get a discount there. Thank you to MFL.com because they compass on our listener leagues for the NFL side. Fantrax, as you all know, do the college side, the campus side. So we want to thank those guys for helping us out there. And then our new sponsor, which is Devy.com. And we have a promo code IDP Nation, right? You can go over and get 10% off of any order. And what this is an energy drink, and it's not your normal energy drink, right? It's not in a can or anything like that. This is a powder, and you mix it just like flavored water stuff. But man, this is a game changer. I'm telling you, I've tried it myself. They've got all kinds of flavors: peach, strawberry, Dragonade. You name it, they've got it. But it gives you focus and energy without all the jitters or crash, right? Because I've drunk energy drinks and you're so hopped up, and then when it wears off, you kind of crash down. This does not do that. It does not make you jittery either. No sugar, no fillers, no artificial flavors. Like I said, they've got all kinds of flavors. They got some swag over there that you can buy too. You can buy packets or you can buy the little tubs. You mix it with 8 or 12 ounces of water, and man, it tastes so good. I've tried them myself. Definitely go check them out. Promo code is IDP Nation. I really, really like their product. It's good. It's way better than what you're getting in energy drinks. And then we've got the Devy IDP Grind and IDP Nation Discord, which is combined. So over there, that's something I started for us not long ago. You could talk about college, high school football, NFL, gambling, recruiting. There's some wrestling that me and Justice likes to talk about. There's a tab for that, baseball, some other stuff. So like I said, we just started that. We're just growing. Go over there and check that out. And speaking of growing, Twitter and YouTube, you can help us out there, right? So Twitter, we're up to 398 followers. YouTube, we're up to 24. I feel like we're getting so close on that. Speaking of YouTube, please rate, review, and subscribe. Right, give us a like, help us grow. The bigger the audience, the more things we can do, and maybe pull in some bigger sponsors. So help us grow there. Same thing with podcasts, wherever you listen: Apple, Spotify, Google, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, Podbean, all those places. We want to thank you for following us. So help spread the word there, and of course on Twitter at Devy IDP Grind, at Hollywood Titan, at Justice_2318. Whew, that's a mouthful. So, yeah, I need a breather. I need one of these W energy drinks over here. So, yeah. But we thank you for following and listening and all that. So, with that said, I turn it over to Justice so he can do his Week 9 Fantasy Corner.
All right. So we'll start off with our Devy IDP Grind Listener League, position-specific league. So we have D tackles and cornerbacks. The top defensive end was Jaleel Clemens from Southern Miss, 27.5 points. The top defensive tackle we've already talked about today, and that's Marshawn Nealon out of Western Michigan, 37 points. Top linebacker, whose name you will hear many times, Joe Sparacio out of Eastern Michigan, 34.5 points. He had 23 total tackles on Saturday. Now, the overwhelming, I think 18 of those 23 were assists, but still, that's a pretty hefty tackle number. Top cornerback, Sean Asbury out of Old Dominion at 22.2 points. And the top safety, Gabe Taylor from Rice, 32.4 points. And our Campus Canton League, top defensive lineman, Jalen Green, JMU, 25 points. You're going to hear his name again as well. Linebacker was Sparacio. And the top defensive back was Cameron Oliver, 29 points. The Fantasy Football Legends League, once again, Jalen Green, JMU, 25 points. Linebacker, Marquise Watson Trent, Georgia Southern, 33 points. And defensive back, Cameron Kinchins out of Miami, Florida, with 31.3 points. Here's a good one for you. Toonland, the top defensive lineman, true freshman, Ruben Bain, Miami, Florida, 28.5 points.
Yeah.
And then the linebacker was Sparacio, and the defensive back was Kinchins again. Some of the top free agents in our listener league this past week. Defensive end Aiden Hubbard, Northwestern, 25 points. Hollywood's Player of the Week, defensive end Jared Ivey, Ole Miss, 20.5 points. And defensive tackle Billy Wooden from UMass, 17 points. Top linebackers, free agents, Quentin Wilfon, South Alabama, 30.5 points. Cameron Whitfield, Louisiana, 29.5 points. And Langston Patterson, Vanderbilt, 25.4 points. Defensive backs, Richard Toney, Nevada, 36.1 points. Dontavius Nash, East Carolina, 34.2 points. And Isaiah Nwokobia, SMU, 30 points. Moving over to our top fantasy players on the season, number one, and he's widened this lead big time, is Jalen Green, defensive lineman, JMU, 141 points. He's had 2 big back-to-back weeks. Defensive lineman, Muhammad Kamara, Colorado State, 96 points. And then defensive lineman, Jonah Ellis, out of Utah, 91 points. The top linebackers, Peyton Wilson, NC State, 166 points. And then buoyed by his huge week this past week, Joseph Sparacio, Eastern Michigan, is tied for second with 159 points with Jason Henderson from Old Dominion. Defensive backs, Hunter Wohler, Wisconsin, 139 points. True freshman, Dylan Thieneman, Purdue, with 138 points. And Kendaran Ray out of Tulsa with 124 points. And that's it for this week's fantasy rundown here in week 9 of IDP land.
Awesome. So your IDP your Toonland league,
Yep.
that's got some special scoring, I think, right?
Yeah, it's got the scoring's higher than other leagues. Yep.
Yeah.
I mean,
So
tackles are pretty consistent to the other leagues, but like sacks, hurries, interceptions, they're all higher. So like it's I mean, I guess maybe it's more like, big play boosted.
Right. Yeah.
Fumbles, all that
Your
stuff.
defensive tackle, Billy Wooden for UMass, monster game for them. That was one of the early games I was watching. And the last 3-4 minutes of that game, he just really took over. Huge game for him. So big props to the big defensive tackle there. Of course, Ivy with Ole Miss. Yeah, I know. Like I said last week, I love your top free agents. It's so hard to look at everything, right? So sometimes when you post these, I'm like, oh, I need to go check this guy out. Now, 9 times out of 10, you've already beaten to the punch and got the player on your roster. But still, I like to see that though. Man, we rolled right through them pretty quick. So our 5-star topic, thoughts and impressions from on week 9. Another favorite piece that you do here is your true freshman shining for week 9. So safety Dylan Thieneman for Purdue that you mentioned, 12 tackles, 7 solos, 5 assists, big game from him. A name that we're starting to mention more and more, Anthony Hill Jr., the linebacker from Texas, 5 tackles, 4 solos, assist to TFL. And then somebody I mentioned a couple weeks ago, defensive end Reuben Bain Jr., right, from Miami, 7 tackles, 3 solos, 4 assists, 2 sacks, 2 TFLs. So those are some freshmen that are standing out for sure.
Yeah, I mean, Reuben Bain's really come on the last few weeks.
Yeah, and I feel like Hill's getting better and better too. I mean, despite because I know you weren't very high on him, and I wasn't crazy about him, but he seems to be playing really well next to Jalen Ford on that defense.
Yeah. I mean, like, he never looked good in any of the high school tape that I watched, but yeah, I mean,
Right.
he's playing well for Texas, so that's all that matters, right?
And that's huge for both him and the coaching staff, right? That shows one that coaching staff is doing things the right way and showing him, and B, that he's willing to learn. Right? He's changing what he's doing. So, yeah, big props to him. Kind of looking ahead to week 10, some big matchups. 25th ranked Kansas State at number 7 Texas. Texas favored by 4.5. This should be a cakewalk for Texas. I mean, they had to slip up earlier.
No Quinn Ewers though.
I know that's the question. Do we know how much time he's going to miss? Did we ever figure out?
It's a couple weeks. It's going to be a couple weeks. My guess is maybe like towards the end of the season. Maybe they'll be back. Maybe
Yeah, and it's not Arch that's
or
stepping
maybe
in
the championship game. Maybe.
It's not Archie or Arch Manning. I forget who it is, but it's not him.
It's Malik Murphy. Malik Murphy started for him. Yeah, I mean, I think maybe maybe they'll get Ewers back for the Big 12 championship, possibly. Which Oklahoma, that was a big loss this week. Oklahoma, right?
Yeah, that was crazy, right? I was just sitting here watching the end of that game before we jumped on, and Kansas took it to them. I mean, the moment wasn't too big. They stayed right with them, right? Even when Oklahoma answered, they turned around and answered right back. So kudos to them, which has caused Oklahoma to slip down the rankings a bit. So
right now there's a 5-way tie for the Big 12. There's 5 teams, 4-1. It's Oklahoma, Iowa State. Never would have guessed Iowa State be 4-1, right? Oklahoma State, Texas, and Kansas State. So that Kansas State, Texas, that's a big matchup. It could help determine who makes it to the Big 12 championship game.
Yeah, it's definitely going to have an impact, I think, or could.
One thing pretty interesting that the bottom 3 teams in the Big 12 are the 3 new teams, or 3 the 3 of the 4 new teams, Houston, UCF, and Cincinnati, and BYU is just ahead of them. So yeah, the 4 new teams having a rough go at it their first season in the Big 12.
Yeah. Our next game is number 14 Missouri at number 1 Georgia. Georgia's favored by 15. I feel like Georgia's going to cover this because it seems like Georgia's getting disrespected. They've won back-to-back national championships. They're currently undefeated for a 3rd year in a row. Kirk Herbstreit didn't have him in his top 4. All the things that Kirby Smart wants to hear, right? This is the stuff that he can motivate his team with. But Missouri has they've kind of come out of nowhere this year and put together a really good team that's having a really good season. I don't know that they have enough for Georgia, but I wouldn't be surprised for them to cover. I think Georgia covers, but I think 15 is going to be close.
If they can somehow manage to pull off the upset, and then win out the rest of their SEC schedule, that means Georgia won't be in the SEC championship game because they'll both have 1 loss, and Missouri will have the tiebreaker.
Right, and they both have to play Tennessee in the next few weeks. Tennessee has UConn, then I think they have Georgia, Missouri, or vice versa. So yeah, this is a big game for both of these teams, right? Missouri, Georgia.
Yeah,
because the loser is, like you said, is kind of out. And then if they lose, either one of them was to lose again to Tennessee, that would destroy their seasons. But we'll see. I just feel like Georgia's kind of getting overlooked or disrespected, and not what you want to see if you're Missouri.
Tennessee has UConn, Missouri, Georgia, and Vanderbilt left.
Yeah. So this is a big 3-week stretch for those 3 teams. I mean, the team that can navigate the next 3 weeks wins the SEC. Whether it's Missouri, Georgia, or even Tennessee.
If Tennessee wins out, they can win it.
Yeah, all they got to do is beat Missouri.
Georgia would have to have another loss, though. So, because Tennessee already has.
Oh yeah, because but they would have 2 losses if they lose to Missouri, then lose.
If they lose to Missouri,
Which I don't expect to happen, but hey, who knows? Number 5 Washington at number 24 USC. Washington's favored by 3.5.
How is USC still ranked? I don't
know. Pardon me.
I don't know, dude.
But I don't.
They're not one of the best 25 best teams in the nation. They aren't. Sorry.
Maybe offensively they are, but defensively they are.
As a team, they aren't.
No, as an entire team, no.
They should have lost again on Saturday to Cal. I mean, Cal went for 2 just to win the game. But they could have kicked the extra point and sent it to overtime. But they went for the 2 points to go to try and win it right then. But I mean, I don't. If Alex Grinch doesn't get fired, I don't know, man. Like,
and if for some
he must have something
miracle
on Lincoln Riley.
Must have, and if for some miracle they make it into the college football playoff, I don't think they will, but if they did, they would get roasted by the other 3 teams just because their defense cannot stop anything.
No, it's bad. It's bad.
And I just don't get it. I don't understand why you have, and I talk about this every week, and it just irks me. I don't understand why you have players such as Corey Foreman, a 5-star, number 1 overall recruit in the class, on your bench with your defense being this bad. So
He
either
must be
A, he's
terrible.
not
He's
who we
got to
thought they
be
are.
terrible. I mean,
Either that or their coaching staff are idiots. I mean, it's I don't know. It's
the
crazy.
coaching staff isn't good either because they have some talent, but I gotta believe Foreman
Yeah.
isn't very good.
Yeah, and
He hasn't done anything to prove it
So-
otherwise.
which sucks because looking at his high school tape, I thought he was a really good dude, man. I thought he was going to be possibly one of the next ones. You've heard me talk about it when Chop is on here. That year, recruiting wise, I spent a butt ton for him. A, because I wanted him. B, because I wanted to see, it was my first go around in IDP Devy auctions. I wanted to see how high IDPs were being valued, and I spent $275 on him. And he ain't anymore 75 right now. So, huge miss on me. Just a huge miss, and that's the same class that had JT Tuamalo and Jack Sawyer, the defensive ends at Ohio State. And both of those look way better than Corey Foreman right now. But and they've got some other players too. I just kind of wonder that coaching staff can't be that naive or oblivious to the issues at hand, and for Lincoln Riley to not make some kind of change is crazy to me.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't believe he didn't do it last year, and if he doesn't do it this year, I don't even know what to say.
Right, Washington.
They I think they have their way with USC. It's probably not even close. Just kind of my thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, Washington should beat him easily.
Yeah.
We can't hear you, Hollywood. I can't hear you. Can you hear me? Yeah, I can't hear you. I can't hear you, Hollywood. I think he's asking about offense on Maury and Hampton. Yeah, I mean, depending on what your options are. I mean, we don't do offense on this particular podcast, but it depending on what your options are. If I would start Hampton, yeah, I mean, he should at least get his. I would think early on in the game. They might sit him later. For your flex question, I'm going with Dylan Johnson, Washington, over Edwards from Georgia.
Can you hear me
I'd
now?
rather start Dylan Johnson. Yep, I hear you now.
Sorry, had a technical difficulty there. I
just answered the two questions. Yeah. They're both offense, but
sorry,
they're both offensive questions, but I did answer them.
Sorry, my headphone cut off for some reason, so it disconnected my phone, I guess, from talking. But yeah, would you start Hampton this week? I think so. Flex Edwards of Georgia
Dejon
or
Edwards,
Johnson of Washington?
Dylan Johnson. That's who he's asking about.
I think I go Edwards, right?
I'd go with Dylan Johnson.
Oh, okay. See, I don't know enough about Johnson. That's why I've seen Edwards a little more. So,
I guess he's going against USC, man. Going against USC. That USC defense
that is true.
is terrible.
Yeah. Start your bench players against USC because they're probably going to score or do something terrific on offense. But yeah, we're typically IDP, right? We try to stay IDP, but yeah, thank you for the questions. We're glad to help. Um, what I was saying is our last game is LSU 13th ranked versus 8th ranked Alabama. Alabama's favored by 3. This game is typically,
It's usually a close game.
yeah, it's usually a close game. It's usually got a major impact on the national championship a lot of times over the years. We've seen the historic 6-3 game from a few years ago, and lots of personalities, right? From Ed Orgeron to Nick Saban, and now you got Brian Kelly in there. You got your Jaden Daniels, you got your Will Andersons and Dallas Turner now. So I think this will be a fun game to watch. And I think this is the type of game that Saban gets up for, right? This is kind of what makes his blood boil because he knows this is a big game. So with some impact. If he wins this, he's likely cruising to the SEC championship game, right, where he gets to maybe get some revenge against Kirby Smart in Georgia. So big game. I think this is definitely one he likes here.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't. It's kind of be how that Alabama offense performs against the LSU defense, right? I mean, I think that's what it's going to come down to. I think the LSU offense is pretty good, and Alabama defense is decent, and so that's strength on strength. It's going to be who wins the battle between the LSU defense and the Alabama offense.
Yep, I agree. If they can put some pressure on Milroe and make him uncomfortable, then I like LSU's chances. But
especially if they're able to force him to pass a lot,
Right. I just think that Saban, like I said, this is the type of game that kind of gets his blood boiling, right? This is a challenge for him, right? Because he knows Kelly wants to come in there and prove that he's the new team, the new top dog, and Saban just ain't going to let you walk all over him. So, I mean, go back to the Tennessee game, right? Tennessee jumped out with a huge lead in the first half and went in at halftime, and there was adjustments made by that coaching staff, and it showed because they ran away with the second half and beat us good. So, if I have to bet, I'm always taking Saban because that dude, he knows how to get it done.
Man, I'm sure his objective is to, run the ball like crazy and play good defense, right? I'm sure that's what their game plan is going forward. The LSU defense is going to have to stop the run game and force Milroe to have to beat him through the air.
Yep, I agree with you. We had another comment here from the Real Belt Collector. He wanted to post his lineup for us to help. So yeah, we're always glad to help. Do that. Please hit us up on at Devy IDP Grind. Unfortunately, we don't have an Instagram, right? But you can hit us up on Twitter at Devy IDP Grind or me at Hollywood Titan or Justice at Justice_2318. You can go over to the IDPNation.com page. There's a comment section there that you can get a hold of us. So we're always glad to help, but for the purpose of this show, we mainly stay IDP. But yeah, if you'll reach out to us on Twitter or whatever, we can help you with your offensive stuff. Thank you for listening and tuning in, by the way. First of all, big win for y'all last Saturday, Justice.
We didn't get a win, but
I mean, not a win.
It was a game. It was a good game.
Yeah, it was a good game.
They didn't get blown out.
No slouch.
No. It was a good game, and ODU had their chances to win the game. They just couldn't get it done. I mean, too many self-inflicted mistakes. I feel like, but yeah, they played probably their best game of the year.
Yeah, offensive line is your biggest recruiting portal need, right? I mean, that
absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not picking on your guys, but I watched part of that game.
They're the only ones worse than Colorado. I mean, like, if you look at sacks, how many sacks they give up on average per game, they're the worst. Colorado's the second worst. So, absolutely,
it was
absolutely,
Yep, Tennessee, my Vols was able to get by Kentucky. Big win for them, keeps them kind of in play for some bigger things, bigger bowl games, whatever. So we'll see. But they like we mentioned, they got a hard schedule coming up after UConn with Missouri and Georgia. So we'll see how that plays out. Big win for Chops Nebraska this week. They look good. I thought looked really good.
Yeah.
So maybe Matt Rule's getting that turned around, right? Getting it headed in the right direction. We'll see. Anything else you got for us?
No. Just looking to hopefully close out the season in my fantasy leagues and make the playoffs. I look to be in decent shape in most of the leagues, so looking hopefully can get some wins this week and go into the playoffs with some momentum.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I'm in 4 leagues. Three are Campus to Canton IDP Devy, and all 3 of them I've kind of just not made the cut this year. I am in 1 league that's offensive only, and I'm kind of contending there. So maybe that can be my saving grace as far as Devy leagues go. But I think now's the perfect time for you to make some trades, for draft picks or recruiting dollars or whatever it is. Maybe some younger players. Right now is the time you need to take advantage and get ready for the off season that's coming up. For those of you that's in the championship, good luck to you. If you need any help with lineups or roster moves or trades or whatever, please feel free to hit me and Justice up at Hollywood Titan, at Justice_2318, at Devy IDP Grind. Follow us on YouTube. Please rate, review, and subscribe. Same thing with where you listen to podcasts: Apple, Spotify, Google, iHeartRadio, Podbean, Stitcher, all those good things. Don't forget to use the promo code IDP Nation if you're making a Devy.com purchase. Energy drink, like I said, really good product. I use it myself. Really good stuff. Go check their stuff out. You will enjoy it. With that said, I think we are done. We will be back next week for the final week of
regular
IDP
season.
Devy. Yeah, the regular season.
Before we get to the playoffs.
Yeah.
College.
So, college is a little different because it's a shorter season. So, be interesting to see how that plays out. But if you need help, feel free to hit us up. Let us know. We thank you for watching. We thank you for listening. And we thank you for supporting us. And we will see you next week.